Every time his eyes met mine, a cold shiver ran down my spine, yet my heart pounded for reasons I couldn't understand. This is story of a lady that find true love from a cold billionaire. Before we begin, please let us know which city you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy our content, kindly like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, sit back and enjoy the story. It was the kind of night that smelled of betrayal. I stood in the grand hall of Whitmore Manor, shimmering chandeliers above casting fractured rainbows on the polished marble floor. Around me hovered relatives I barely recognized, distant cousins, greedy aunts, conniving uncles, all gathered for one purpose, my marriage. My own father, pale and trembling, raised a trembling glass of champagne. To secure the family's future, he toasted, but his eyes betrayed him. A hush fell as the butler announced the arrival of the guest of honor. My breath caught in my throat. From the private wing emerged a man wrapped in shadows. His suit was immaculately tailored, his expression icy. Rumor called him the ghost of Gotham, a billionaire who never smiled, never spoke, and never revealed his face. They said he kept everyone at a distance, traded in cold efficiency, and broke hearts like brittle glass. But tonight he stood before me. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But all I could do was sink to my knees, the world spinning. My father stepped forward with forced composure. "Mr. Blackwood," he began, voice quivering, "accept our deepest gratitude for stepping in at such short notice. You know our predicament." The billionaire tilted his head, eyes, dark as starless skies, settling on me. "I know what I'm here to do," he said, voice low and measured, each word echoing off the marble. "And I will not be swayed or delayed." A lightning bolt of fear shot through me. This was no fairy tale hero. He wouldn't rescue me, he would claim me. Without waiting for my consent, my father gave a slight bow of acquiescence. A hush gripped the room. I tried to speak, to protest, but my voice faltered. The air around me grew frigid, as though winter itself had settled in my bones. He extended a gloved hand. "Shall we proceed?" I stared at that hand, smooth, commanding, ominous, and for some reason my heart thudded. 2 weeks later, I stood beside him at City Hall. The ceremony was a blur. The officiant's words, the soft hum of cameras, the shocked gasps from the few guests who had dared attend. When he slid the gold band onto my trembling finger, it felt like an icy cuff. I swallowed hard, trying not to faint. He showed no emotion, no warmth, no apology. Only the cold glint in his eyes as he repeated our new shared name, Mrs. Whitmore Blackwood. That night, I was escorted to my new home, Blackwood Tower, a monolith of steel and glass that pierced the clouds. My suite was vast and empty, echoing with loneliness. I touched the silk sheets, imagining what life would be like when a husband never held you. Somewhere in the shadows, he watched. I shivered, aware of his gaze. My chest tightened with dread, and with something unnameable. What had I done? I awoke to a silence so deep it roared in my ears. The morning light filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, revealing a sky painted in pale gray. I dressed quickly, heart fluttering, afraid of what awaited me below. The living area was cavernous. High ceilings, sleek furniture, no personal touches. It felt less like a home and more like a fortress. My footsteps sounded hollow. He appeared then, emerging from a dark corridor, hands in pockets, expression unreadable. He stopped a few feet away, studying me as though I were a puzzle he hadn't yet solved. "Breakfast," he said curtly, nodding toward the kitchen door. "Join me at 8. I nodded, voice lost. He turned and vanished into the shadows. At exactly 8, I found him seated alone at a long marble table. He had a plate of eggs and toast before him, perfectly arranged, untouched. I poured myself juice and sat across, my stomach twisting. He spoke without looking up. "You will learn that Blackwood Tower runs on efficiency. We operate by schedule, by rule. Personal feelings are irrelevant." For a moment, his words froze me. Then anger flared. "And I suppose I'm just another piece in your system?" I snapped. He finally lifted his gaze, icy blue eyes boring into mine. "You are my wife," he said simply. "That is enough." My cheeks burned. I stood abruptly. "Enough? You think that's enough?" He remained unflinching. "I will claim you as I claimed every other agreement in my life, again and again, until the terms are fulfilled." My heart pounded, but somewhere beneath the fear, I felt a strange thrill. I clenched my fists. "Then maybe your terms need rewriting. This marriage does not make me yours." "Not yet." He regarded me, lips curving in something almost like a smirk. "We shall see." I stormed away, leaving him alone with his relentless calm. That day, I explored the tower. I found personal assistants who flinched when he appeared, security guards who saluted him with trembling hands, and rooms filled with data on me, my habits, my dreams, my fears. It was unsettling, knowing every corner of my life was plotted and recorded. And he watched it all. When evening fell, I returned to my suite. On the bedside table lay a single white rose and a note. Try to sleep. Tomorrow, you will learn what it means to be claimed. My pulse raced. I held the rose, its petals soft and pure, a stark contrast to the man who sent it. Sleep eluded me. Morning light was pale when I found the rectangle envelope on my desk. No rose this time, only a card with neat printing. Join me in the study at 7. My pulse quickened. Why did I obey? Fear, curiosity, and something deeper pushed me forward. The study lay at the top of a dim hallway. My steps echoed. I paused at the door, swallowed, and entered. He stood behind a solid oak desk, arms folded. His tailored suit was dark against the polished wood. On the desk lay 2 sheets of paper, a pen, and a pair of wine glasses. I met his gaze. He said nothing. I waited. Finally, he gestured to the papers. Read and sign. Hands trembling, I lifted the top sheet. It was a list of rules for shared life under one roof. It outlined dinner times, use of common spaces, even rules for conversation. The second sheet was a blank contract for me to sign, acknowledging those rules. It felt like a leash. These rules protect us both, he said softly, voice steady. They keep distance where we need it, and order where I need control. He folded his hands. I set the paper down and looked up. Protect us? My voice sounded sharp in the still room. I thought I was your prisoner. He frowned. Prisoner implies I want your suffering. I only want order. His eyes flicked to my hands. And your signature. I picked up the pen, but my heart fought the agreement. Then I saw the other glass, empty, waiting. Terms can change, he said quietly. If you have fair cause, we can amend. Shock rose in my chest. You actually offered this? I whispered. He nodded. An unspoken bargain. I stared for long moments before lifting the pen. Each word I wrote felt like a heartbeat. My own heartbeat, asserting that I had some power here. When my name met the line, he sighed and closed the contract. He poured wine into the glasses. To the first agreement. I licked my lips, surprised at a small warmth blooming. I raised my glass. He did the same. The wine was sharp. I half expected him to finish and leave, but he waited. Why do you enforce rules? I asked, voice raw. He studied me. Because I fear chaos. Because I fear losing control. Control keeps people safe and keeps feelings at bay. My throat tightened. Does it? I said softly. Or does it keep people alone? He blinked. His next words were softer. Sometimes alone is safer. Silence stretched. Later, he offered me a tour of his private collection of art. Paintings lined the walls, portraits of faces I did not know. Landscapes of empty valleys. One piece, a small drawing, caught my eye, a young boy holding a wilted rose. I pointed. What is this? He stepped closer. My brother. He died before his 16th birthday. I was 10. He gave me a rose that day. It died the next morning. My mother blamed me for not saving it. His voice was even, but I sensed pain. I swallowed. I'm sorry. He looked away. Childhood rules were harsh. I learned to survive by keeping my guard up. In the quiet study, I felt new understanding bloom. The rigid shell around him was born of loss. When the tour ended, he walked me back to the study door. I stopped. Thank you for sharing, I said softly. He nodded once and left without another word. That night, I lay in bed, mind spinning. A contract, a toast, a confession. Our marriage had become a silent bargain. We each offered a piece of ourselves in that study. Him, a rare truth, me, an inked signature. And in return, we both gained something unexpected, a sliver of trust. Yet the walls between us remained high. Tomorrow, I knew I would test the edges of those walls. I would push back, and he would stand firm. But deep down, in the silent space between fear and hope, something else had begun to grow, possibility. The morning air carried a hint of rain when I awoke to the soft hum of the city below. My thoughts lingered on last night's silent bargain, his confession, my signature, that first clink of wine glasses. In the quiet of my suite, I realized I did something unexpected. I had felt seen. At breakfast, the table was set exactly as before. I drank juice and waited. When he entered, he glanced at the empty seat opposite him. For a moment, his usual steel facade faltered, and he nodded to the chair as though granting permission for something new. "You wanted to see me?" I asked, voice steady. He took a seat but did not look at me. "The board meeting was cancelled. I will work from home today. I thought you might wish for company." My heart fluttered. Company. The word was foreign to us. I nodded. "Thank you." He raised an eyebrow, as if surprised by my gratitude. We ate in silence, footsteps of rain tapping on the windows. When the plates were empty, he pushed his chair back and rose. "Walk with me," he said. I followed him through the winding halls of Blackwood Tower. We passed floor after floor of glass offices, each empty and silent. Finally, he stopped at a grand window overlooking the city park. Rain-dotted leaves glistened beneath the gray sky. He leaned forward, hands pressed to the glass. "My world is data and deals, efficiency and numbers. Human things feel volatile." I watched his reflection, distant and solitary. "But you offered me a bargain, a chance to reshape your rules." He kept his gaze outside. "You are the first to challenge them." "Twice." I stepped closer. "Then I think you might be curious about what happens next." He turned to me, eyes sharp yet softer than before. "What do you propose?" A surge of boldness rose in my chest. "Let me pick dinner tonight. No rules, just two people sharing a meal." He studied me, calculating. "Approved." A thrill shot through me. "Approved." I smiled. That evening, I guided him to a small restaurant nestled between skyscrapers. Inside, warm lights and wooden tables felt like another world. He looked around as though unsure, but followed me to a table in the corner. The hostess murmured polite greetings. I ordered soup and chicken with herbs, simple dishes but fragrant and comforting. He watched me as I ate. Boldly, I said, "Tell me about your favorite meal as a child." His eyes flickered. "My mother's stew. Rich with spices, served in a small kitchen where laughter was rare. She cooked to bring warmth to harsh days. I liked the promise of it." I placed my spoon down. "Promise?" He looked away. "Promise that even in a world without smiles, I could find comfort." I reached out and touched his hand, lightly, almost apologetically. "Then maybe you deserve comfort now." My words hung between us. He drew his hand back, but his gaze stayed on mine. "This is one of your amendments. Shared feelings aren't allowed." I smiled. "One amendment. For tonight." He leaned in, voice low. "Don't mistake this for weakness." My heart raced. I would never. We talked until the candles went out. I learned that behind his cold exterior was a man haunted by loss, craving the comfort he had once known. And he learned that behind my trembling courage lay a woman determined to melt his ice. On the walk back, rain had turned to mist. He offered me his arm. I hesitated, then took it. He was warm beneath his coat. Distance crackled between us, then eased. At my door, he stopped. Tonight was a good change. I nodded. A necessary one. He nodded, but said nothing more. As he turned to go, I called softly, "I'd like another amendment." He paused, glancing back. "Name it." My voice was steady. "No more roses without your words." I paused, heart pounding. "Just truth." His lips twitched, a shadow of a smile. "Agreed." I watched him go, standing in the mist, a figure half-turned toward me. In that moment, I knew our marriage was changing. We were no longer two strangers meeting across vast ice fields, but two people learning where the first flames could burn. Tomorrow held new tests, but for now, I savored the warmth we kindled together. And as I closed the door, I realized I no longer feared the fire. I welcomed it. Later that evening, Blackwood Tower felt heavier than usual. The hum of the elevators had faded, and the halls seemed to hold their breath. I wandered toward the study, drawn by a quiet urgency I couldn't name. The soft glow of a desk lamp spilled into the corridor. I paused outside the door, hand trembling on the handle. Inside, he sat behind his desk, elbows propped on the polished wood, hands clasped. His suit was gone. He wore a dark shirt and slacks. The tie lay discarded on the chair. He looked up, surprised. "You're still here," he said. I closed the door quietly and took a step forward. "I couldn't sleep. You told me the night was for rest. But there are words we left unsaid." He studied me. "Words can change terms. Which words bother you?" My heart pounded. For days, I had felt a shift in him. A subtle softening of his guard, a light in his eyes when he thought I wasn't looking. Yet he remained silent and proud most of the time. I swallowed. "I want to know if you truly trust me." The room grew colder. He leaned back, silent. I wondered if I had asked too much. Trust is earned, he said finally, voice low. I sat on the leather chair opposite him. I know, but I want to earn it. He regarded me in the lamplight. Why? Because I want this marriage to mean something more than rules and bargains. I want to know there is a life inside you I can reach. He looked away, jaw tight. The silence stretched longer than I thought possible. Then, without warning, he pushed back his chair and moved around the desk. I stood, heart racing. Come with me, he said, voice softer than before. He led me past rows of bookshelves into a narrow, hidden door. It opened into a small room, his private office, I realized, filled not with business files but with personal items. There was a framed photograph of a young boy smiling, a jacket hanging on a coat rack, a pair of gloves stained with paint. He stopped by a shelf of old journals. These belong to my brother, he said, voice quiet. He pulled one out and opened to a worn page. He wrote about his dreams, simple things, running through fields, playing in the sun. I never let myself dream like that. I built walls instead. I stepped closer, reaching out but stopping short of touching the journal. Why show me this? He closed the book and handed it to me. Because you asked if I trusted you. Trust means I share my past, my fear, and my regrets. My fingers trembled as I turned the pages filled with a child's handwriting. Tears stung my eyes when I saw a line about heartbreak, his heartbreak, when his brother fell ill. I realized his fortress was built on guilt and loss. I looked at him, voice soft. Thank you for trusting me with this. He studied my face for a moment, then nodded. There is more. He led me to a drawer and pulled out a small music box. He wound it carefully. A gentle melody filled the room. It was simple and sad. I watched him, surprised by the way his eyes glistened. My mother bought this for him on his birthday. He loved music. After, I never played it again. He closed his eyes, letting the tune finish. The final notes hovered in the air like whispered confessions. I wanted to say something comforting, but words failed me. Instead, I set the journal and the music box on the desk and stepped forward. Let me play it, I whispered. Let me be part of this. He looked at me, and I thought I saw hope there. He placed a hand on mine and guided my fingers to wind the box again. Together, we watched the tiny dancer spin in the glass dome. I felt his warmth, his breath close to mine. When the music ended, I dared to lift my head to his. You trusted me with your pain. I will not betray that trust. He closed his eyes and inhaled slowly, as if tasting the moment. Then he opened them, and for the first time, I saw his vulnerability. Tomorrow, he said, voice low, we continue to test these walls. But tonight, we honor what has been shared. I nodded, feeling my heart swell. We both understood. Trust was no longer a word on paper, but a fragile gift we held between us. As I left the room, I carried with me the memory of the tune and the knowledge that our marriage was no longer only about rules. It was about two souls reaching out night by night to claim each other again and again. The invitation arrived on gilded stationery, a formal black tie gala to raise funds for the East Side Children's Home, an orphanage his family had supported since his brother was alive. I read the words in wonder and dread. A gala meant social events, bright lights, and countless strangers. My chest tightened at the thought of standing beside him in public. Yet when he handed me the card that evening, his eyes held a gentle insistence. I wish for you to join me, he said. Your presence matters. That night, I stood before the bedroom mirror in a simple navy dress he had approved. My hair fell in soft waves, and I felt a trembling confidence I had never known. When he appeared at the doorway, he paused, clearly struck. His dark suit fit him perfectly, but it was the way he looked at me, softly, almost tenderly, that sent a warm pulse through my veins. He offered his arm, and for the first time since our marriage, I felt truly chosen. The gala hall glowed with chandeliers and a sea of black tuxedos and elegant gowns. Music drifted across the polished floor. He guided me through the crowd with a steady hand at my back. As we walked, I noticed his staff curtsying to him with deep respect. But his eyes never left me. When guests greeted him, he paused, introduced me as his wife, and uttered a few sincere words. I watched as their stiff smiles eased into genuine warmth. We reached a display of photographs and letters dating back decades. One large portrait caught my eye, the two brothers on a sailboat laughing. I tugged his sleeve. Is this him? I asked. His chest tightened and he nodded. My brother and I, he said. He and I dreamed that one day we could help children like those at the orphanage. A shadow crossed his face as he spoke of his loss. Gently, I slipped my hand into his. He looked down at our joined hands, and I saw pride mingled with sorrow in his eyes. The orchestra began a slow waltz. He extended his hand. "May I have this dance?" Surprised and elated, I placed my hand in his. He guided me to the polished floor. Under the soft glow of lights, our bodies moved together. Each step felt new, a silent language of trust. When he dipped me, our faces lingered inches apart. I felt his breath warm my cheek. For a fleeting moment, the entire room vanished, and there was only the two of us. After the dance, he led me to a balcony overlooking the city skyline. The cool night air carried distant laughter. We leaned against the railing, shoulders almost touching. I dared to ask the question I had kept close to my heart. "Do you ever regret opening your life to me?" His gaze settled on the glittering lights below. "Not once," he said softly. "You remind me that life can be more than numbers and schedules. You bring color out of my darkness." Inside, a sharp voice rang out. A journalist, her pen poised, challenged him with probing questions about our marriage. "Mrs. Blackwood," she said, "what do you say to critics who claim this union is purely transactional?" My heart thundered. I stepped forward, straightening. "I say a marriage is what two people choose to make of it," I replied, voice steady. "We choose trust, understanding, and love." The room went quiet. He watched me, and in his eyes was fierce pride. He guided me into the hall's quieter corridor. "You defended me," he whispered, voice husky with something like awe. My cheeks warmed. "I stand with you," I said. He drew me close, resting his forehead against mine. "Tonight, you showed me your strength," he murmured. "You claimed more than I ever imagined." When the gala ended, we returned to Blackwood Tower in silence, holding hands. In the car, he reached across and brushed a stray hair from my face. "Thank you," he said simply. I smiled sleepily. "Thank you for letting me share your world." Back in my suite, I removed my dress and sank into bed. My mind danced with memories of dancing, speaking up, and his gentle praise. Outside, the city lights sparkled like distant stars. I drifted into sleep with one clear thought. Tonight, we sparked something bright enough to melt the last of our frost. Monday morning brought an unexpected storm. Rain hammered against the glass walls of Blackwood Tower, and wind rattled the windows. I watched from my suite as gray clouds rolled over the city. My heart fluttered with unease. Storms had a way of revealing what lay beneath calm surfaces. I arrived at breakfast, soaking wet and shaken. He stood by the table in a dark sweater, hair damp, eyes sharp with concern. The usual rules lay forgotten. His tie was undone, and he seemed almost human. "Are you all right?" I asked, sliding into my seat. He frowned. "The roads are flooded. My driver is stranded." The power in lower floors flickered. I reached across the table. "Stay here. You don't need to face this alone." He hesitated, then nodded. For the first time, he accepted my help without reservation. We spent the morning coordinating relief, calling the maintenance team, checking security cameras, and ensuring that no staff were trapped. He guided me through technical plans, blueprints of backup generators, flood barriers, emergency procedures. I took notes, my earlier fear replaced by purpose. By noon, power returned, and the staff resumed their posts. He studied me, pride flickering in his eyes. "You learn quickly." I smiled. "I learned from the best." He turned away, but his shoulders relaxed. That afternoon, we stood by the window, watching rain pour like sheets of glass. I dared to ask the question that had weighed on my mind all morning. "Why do you handle everything alone? Why won't you trust others?" He looked at me, raindrops tracing lines on his face. "Because I cannot afford mistakes. One error could cost lives or millions. Trust feels like a risk I can't take." My heart ached at the raw honesty. "But you're human. You make mistakes. And you deserve support." He closed his eyes. "I am afraid of failing everyone who depends on me." I stepped closer and placed my hand on his arm. "Then let me help you carry that fear." He opened his eyes, conflicted. "I don't know how." I reached for his hand. "Start by letting me in. Share the weight, even a little." He squeezed my hand. The storm outside echoed the storm within him, the clash of pride and vulnerability. Hours passed. We sat together in silence, our hands entwined. I felt his pulse slow, a sign that my words reached him. When the rain finally eased, he stood and guided me to the library. "There is something I have avoided for years," he said, voice low. He retrieved a framed letter from the shelf. It was his father's handwriting, stern, demanding, full of expectations. He handed it to me. He wrote this the night my brother died. It blamed me for everything. I never opened it until today. My chest tightened. I read the letter, feeling the weight of his guilt. Why now? I asked. He swallowed. Because I realized I can't move forward while the past holds me hostage. I laid the letter on the table. You don't have to face that alone. You have me. He nodded, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of relief. That night, candles lit the study. We sorted personal effects, old letters, photographs, journals, deciding what to keep and what to let go. Each item we touched released a piece of his pain. When the last drawer closed, he turned to me. Thank you for this, for facing my storm with me. I reached up and placed my fingers gently on his cheek. We are weathering it together. Always. He leaned in and kissed my forehead, a tender, protective gesture that sent warmth through my soul. In that moment, the storm outside no longer mattered. We had found calm in each other. As I left the study, I carried with me more than relief from the building's crisis. I carried the knowledge that real love could face the fiercest storm and emerge unbroken. The next morning arrived clear and bright, as if the storm had washed away more than just raindrops. Sunlight streamed through the windows of Blackwood Tower, casting golden patterns on the marble floor. I dressed in a soft blouse and tailored trousers, feeling the confidence of the last weeks settle around me like a second skin. Today we would face new challenges, and I would stand by him. At breakfast, he slid into his usual seat without a word. But instead of the usual unattended plate, there was food for two. He met my eyes briefly and nodded at the place across from him. I sat down, and we ate in companionable silence, broken by the hum of the city below. He folded his newspaper and slid it aside. We have a board meeting at midday. I nodded. I'd like to come. If you'll have me. He hesitated, brows knitting. It may be tense. I reached across. Then you need me there. He looked at our joined hands, then slowly released mine. Very well. The boardroom on the 15th floor was all glass and chrome, offering a panoramic view of the city skyline. The directors were already seated around the long table, stern faces in dark suits. When we entered, conversation halted. He moved with deliberate calm, and I followed, heart beating fast. Our chair, at the head of the table, was empty until he took his seat. He nodded at me. I swallowed and sat in the next chair. Whispers rippled among the directors. The meeting began with financial reports and growth forecasts. I watched him lead with precision, answering questions clearly. Then came the final agenda, a new partnership proposal with an overseas firm accused of unethical labor practices. Gasps filled the room. One director, Ms. Reed, fixed him with a cold stare. Sir, this deal could damage our reputation. That firm's record is questionable. He replied smoothly. Their technology could double our output in months. We must decide if the risk is worth the reward. Another voice piped up. We risk lawsuits and public backlash. Our charity work for the orphanage will be undermined. He turned to me. What do you think? I inhaled, surprising myself with my own steadiness. We can't ignore the human cost. But perhaps there is a way to audit their practices and set clear ethical conditions. If they fail, we walk away. The table grew silent. All eyes were on him, and on me. He considered. A conditional partnership with strict oversight. Ms. Reed frowned. How will we enforce these conditions? I leaned forward. We hire an independent auditor, someone neutral. We schedule quarterly reviews, and if any violation occurs, the contract terminates immediately. Our board can appoint the auditor together. The directors murmured agreement. He looked at me, a spark of pride in his icy eyes. I believe this is acceptable. Any objections? No one spoke. He rose. Then we have consensus. Thank you all. As the directors filed out, several paused to nod at me with newfound respect. When the room emptied, he stood and approached me. You held your own. I smiled despite the tremble in my chest. We held a united front. He placed a hand at the small of my back. Thank you for joining me. I let his words sink in. For months, he had ruled alone. Today, he had given me a voice in his world. Later, in his private office, he closed the door. I could see the relief in his posture. I couldn't have done it without you. I shrugged softly. We're partners in this marriage and in business. He studied me, as though memorizing a new treasure. I want you by my side more often. If you are willing. I nodded. Always. He paused, then touched my cheek gently. There is one more thing. I tilted my head. What? He opened a drawer and took out a small package wrapped in gray paper. He handed it to me. "For your courage today." My fingers trembled as I unwrapped it. Inside lay a delicate bracelet of silver and onyx, simple and elegant. I lifted it to the light, the onyx gleaming like a midnight star. He slid it onto my wrist. "Every time you wear it, remember that your strength shines bright in my world." I looked up at him, eyes shining. "I'll wear it always." He smiled, a real smile, warm and rare. "Then tonight, let me take you somewhere special. No business, no boards, just us." I felt my heart swell. "I'd like that." That evening, hand in hand, we stepped into a sleek black car and drove toward the harbor. As the sun set, we boarded a small yacht waiting for us, lights twinkling like stars. He poured champagne, and we toasted not only our marriage but our new alliance in work and in life. The city lights reflected on the water, and as we danced quietly on the deck, I knew our bond had grown stronger than ever. The morning after our moonlit dance on the yacht, I awoke with a sense of hope I hadn't felt in months. Light filtered through the sheer curtains, painting soft patterns on the walls of my suite. My wrist tingled where the onyx bracelet lay, reminding me of his pride in my strength and our partnership. I dressed quickly, eager to greet the day, and my husband. Downstairs, the grand foyer shimmered. He stood by the staircase, waiting in a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up. I approached, and for the first time, neither of us spoke about schedules or contracts. "Good morning," I said, offering him a smile. "Good morning," he replied, his tone warmer than usual. He held out a silver coffee press and 2 cups. I thought we could share breakfast at my favorite spot in the tower. Hand in hand, we climbed a winding staircase to a small rooftop garden, a hidden oasis amid steel and glass. Delicate flowers bloomed in planters, and a vine-covered pergola offered shelter. A round table waited with fresh fruit, warm croissants, and steaming coffee. The city hummed below, but here, there was only birdsong and the gentle rustle of leaves. We sat, and he poured coffee. I inhaled the rich aroma and savored each sip. "I thought of a way to celebrate our agreement," he said quietly. "Let's plant something together. A tree, perhaps. A symbol of growth and rootedness." My heart soared. "I'd love that." We planted a young magnolia sapling near the pergola, our fingers brushing as we settled its roots. Dirt smeared his cuff, and I giggled as I leaned in to wipe it away. He didn't recoil. Instead, he held out a handkerchief and dabbed gently at my cheek. In that moment, I felt the barrier between us dissolve. But beneath the warmth of this morning, shadows lingered. Later that day, as I prepared for my afternoon engagement, a foundation meeting for the orphanage, my phone buzzed with a voicemail. It was my sister's voice, urgent and shaky. "Please call me as soon as you can. It's about Father. I don't know what to do." My breath caught. My father, weakened by age and guilt over selling me off in that auction night, had lived quietly in our family home. He'd sent few letters since the wedding, his pride too great for apologies. Fear and resentment twisted in my chest. I hurried to his residence, a modest house miles away, rain threatening again. In the front room, I found my sister pacing. She looked at me with wide, worried eyes. "He collapsed last night. The doctors say he has a heart condition. He's stable, but we need you." My throat tightened. Memories flooded back. The betrayal of being auctioned, the cold refusal of my consent. I had excised him from my life the moment I entered that hall. Could I go back and care for him now? Tears stung my eyes. "I'm going to the hospital," I said, voice trembling. She nodded, relief mingled with fear. "Thank you." At the hospital, the sterile corridors echoed my footsteps. I entered the ICU waiting area where my father lay, pale and fragile, machines beeping softly. The moment he saw me, his eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice raspy. "I was weak. I should have protected you, not sold you to him." My chest ached. He reached for my hand. I knelt beside him. "It wasn't me," I said gently. "You were protecting the family's future. It was not your burden alone." He squeezed my hand, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I missed you every day." I swallowed. "I forgive you. And I need you to get better. Not for me, but for yourself. We both deserve peace." He nodded, exhaustion and relief mingling in his gaze. "Thank you, my daughter." Leaving the hospital, my mind raced. I carried not only worries for my father, but a deep sense of how past wounds could still cut. I needed someone to share this burden, someone who had shown me trust and strength. I called him from the lobby. His voice answered on the first ring. "What is it?" he asked gently. It's father, I said, voice wavering. He collapsed. He's in ICU. He was silent for a moment. Then, I'm on my way. Within the hour, he arrived at the hospital in a dark sedan. He walked beside me into the waiting room, his presence calm and protective. When I saw his eyes loosening with concern, I realized how deeply he cared. In the ICU hallway, I introduced him. This is Mr. Blackwood, my husband. He stepped forward, bowing his head. Mr. Whitmore, I'm sorry for your pain. I promised to stand by your daughter. My father, frail but alert, looked at him with surprise and gratitude. Thank you. That evening, we gathered as a family at my childhood home once my father was stable. He rested in bed, eyes closed but peaceful. My sister and I prepared tea. My husband stood by the doorway, silent but supportive. I took his hand under the doorframe. Thank you for coming. He squeezed my hand. I promised. I smiled through tears. You are more than I ever imagined. He bowed his head. And you are my anchor. In that quiet house, surrounded by the echoes of my past, I realized our marriage had come full circle. From an auction's cold contract to planting saplings, dancing under stars, and now standing together before my father's bedside, we had claimed each other again and again. And in doing so, we healed wounds that had cut both our hearts. My breath caught as his voice cracked. And I never imagined I'd find love in a man I thought I feared. But you taught me that walls can be torn down, that trust can grow stronger than any ice. Sebastian, I love you. More than words, more than any rule. He pulled me close, forehead resting against mine. Our breaths mingled, hearts beating in unison. Then let us step forward together, unbound and free. Below us, the city bustled unaware, but here in our private garden, time stood still. He swept a stray lock of hair from my face and kissed my forehead, a gentle, protective gesture that spoke of devotion and safety. That evening, we held a small celebration in the grand hall at Blackwood Tower. Managers, friends, and staff gathered, some who had watched us from afar and others who had stood by us throughout. The chandeliers gleamed overhead, but it was the light in our eyes that made the room warm. He raised a glass. To Ada, my wife, my partner, my equal. His voice echoed through the hall. I stepped forward, taking the microphone. And to Sebastian, the man who taught me that love can conquer fear and that two people can create their own destiny. Applause filled the room. We toasted, and for the first time, neither of us felt cold or alone. Later, on the terrace, we watched fireworks burst above the city skyline, colorful blooms mirrored in our hearts. He wrapped an arm around me, pulling me close. What happens now? I whispered. He smiled softly. Now we live. Without rules, without bargains, just us. I rested my head on his shoulder. Just us. In that moment, I understood what it meant to be claimed, not by contract or fear, but by a love so deep it melted every ice wall we had built. Together, we would face whatever came next. Hey there, story lovers. If you want to add a little more magic, adventure, and heartwarming moments to your day, make sure you subscribe to the Daily Stories channel on YouTube. Join our community of dreamers and seekers of inspiration. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our new story every single day.